today I asked you all to come here today to talk about a PLC on Science Notebooks. So really, why are you here? About half of us were here when the district implemented the use of writing pieces within the district. And this seemed to be another check in the box, especially for the science department. So personally, being math and science certified, I was sort of baffled that I would be teaching other students to the techniques of writing. And really, Bird is one of the only ones in the science department that is certified in both science and language arts. So the rest of us are all sort of in the same boat. So when we were introduced that we would no longer be doing 2 writing pieces, instead 1 in a notebook, we were all beyond ecstatic. And what this meant for us is we really thought, well, we've gained a whole month of teaching back. But there was more involved in the notebooks. So the purpose I've brought you all here today is to talk about and evaluate if the use of scientific notebooks in the classroom is a reliable tool for assessing student growth. Being a professional, we all do what we're told to do, but really we are all here for a purpose, to teach the kids and be here for the kids. Except a select few of us, maybe some of us are here for summers off, but realistically, or in serious, I thought it would be important to talk about the true understanding of the purpose behind science notebooks, because it really isn't just a check in the box. They are used for, when they're using their full potential, they can be a good assessment tool and they can really benefit the students. So I want to give you a little history before I begin into anything else. The educational reform in the last 20 years has gone through intense scrutiny and broad changes. Back in 2002, when the No Child Left Behind Act was brought about, it brought a dramatic impact into the public schools. This law affected the course content, assessments, teacher training, which all was intended to improve academic achievement. Using science notebooks has recently become a popular tool for student learning and possibly a valuable instrument for assessing student performance. So, this sort of brought where I wanted to do a study on science notebooks to really determine 2 main things. Are science notebooks effective, and are they a reliable tool for assessing student performance? So the use of the notebook. The notebook was supposed to be, or intended when doing the study, was intended to look at 3 main things. We, as students, were going to record student observations, document content material, and explore scientific information. Of course, we discussed the importance that should be included in the scientific notebooks, and we wanted to make sure it became the students' everything. Because we don't have any science workbooks or books, we wanted it to become their own book that they were creating. So the notebooks were to include notes, their own journaling, reflections on what we've talked about, maybe the growth that we've gone, visuals such as graphs, tables, drawings, anything that really became their own and would help them to learn and to look back on and maybe see mistakes or misconceptions that they've had and grow from them. The other purpose for the scientific notebooks is we were hoping that there would be a link in success in other classes. And the 2 main classes that we thought there could really be a link between was language arts and math. Being able to take that written communication skills in their notebook, being able to write reflections, explain things in detail, and being able to communicate to the teachers, not verbally, but through their own written expressions. The second thing that we thought could be successful is mathematic enhancement. So as science, we do a lot of labs, and being able to take those calculations and incorporate some of the math skills that they've recently been talking about. And I know for us sixth graders, we just started physics, and I ran down to Nicole's room the other day and I said, what have you taught these kids about math? Because they don't know very basic stuff. And so it's taking that knowledge that they should know in the math and being able to help each other out so they can be successful in all classes. So the design of the study, the format was broken up into basically four main components. They were, they either did not have evidence of something, they had incomplete evidence, satisfactory evidence, or they've gone beyond exceeding the expectations. And what we looked at is we looked at 5 main categories. The first one was a very simple category. Did they have a front cover? Did they include their name, subject, class period, and teacher name? This is just making sure they're organized, responsible for their own stuff, and taking responsibility of their actual notebook. The second part was the table of contents. Do they include page numbers, and do they include subjects? And we've noticed that the table of contents, we've all gone about it a little differently. I know I've even taken a different spin on it this year than I did last year. But the main thing about the table of contents is giving those kids the opportunity when they're looking for something to quickly glance back in the table of contents and be able to see where something is easily. Because like I said before, since we don't have the books, this is their everyday organization skill. The third thing we looked at were observations and laboratory experiments. Did they have organized data, tables, graphs, reflections, and drawing conclusions? And again, with the science, we're looking at this year taking our graphs as our student growth goals. And are they able to use these main things to be able to look at things, analyze, see if there's any relationships going on in labs? And if they're not able to do this with their own stuff, they really can't do it if you give them a graph and say, well, what does this graph mean? And so this is something that we'll really be looking at throughout the year. The fourth part is teacher's notes, and we all go about this a little differently, but giving handouts and lessons of notes, or maybe, I know the difference between my 6th grade and 8th grade is I usually give 6th grade guided notes, and I make my 8th graders write stuff. So this can be very different based off the grade level. I know that we all do things a little differently for that. The last part was questions for further study. This is more the teacher feedback and student self-reflection, taking the comments that teachers made and being able to have students look back on those comments and grow from them, not just an opportunity to say, oh shoot, I got a 5 out of 10. Well, why did I get a 5 out of 10, and how can I make that better? The next thing that we were going to look at with the study is comparing assessments. So can I take the knowledge I've known from, or the information that I've taken from the notebook score, and compare it to the test score? And was there a relationship going on here with the students? Was someone who scored really good on the test, did they also score good on the notebook actual check? And being able to see, is there a true relationship with this, and can we look at how notebooks, if they're doing with notebooks, can we use that as an assessment tool for us teachers? So this was sort of just a very simple layout that I used when I put the students in. I put their notebook score and their test score so I could easily compare. So when I looked at the study, obviously teaching majority 6th grade, I took 30 of my students from the 6th grade science class, obviously here, and the age ranged from 11 to 13 with these students. I tried as best as I could to make an equal representation of the academic achievement for all students, making sure I had some students who, based off their previous scores, were lower, and some who were higher, and some who were average. So I could really get a justification of, does this work for all students? So before the study, I had told all my students that the expectation of the format of their notebook and the information that they should be included in the notebook. And the main things that we looked at and the main things that we talked about was, do you have your data? Are you giving good observations? Have you shown what you've discovered through these observations and what you've included in your reflections? Most importantly, I guess I should include it with this as well, is with the study, I told them that they would be given detailed feedback with their notebooks through me in understanding what they had wrong and what they did really good at to help further their growth. So the study was conducted, and there was definitely growth in the content. And with that being said, for a high percentage of students, and there were a few that did not reflect this, but for a high percentage of students, majority of students, if they grew in their notebook, if they were doing really good in their notebook, they were also doing really good on the test. So for me, this told me there was a direct reflection or a direct correlation between the science notebooks and how students are performing, which I think is a great opportunity. For me, as a student, I really struggled in tests, and I think these students are taking hold of their notebook, they're claiming them as their own, they're thrilled to draw and thrilled to explain in their own words and make it their own notebook. And this is another way that we can assess them. Are they getting the information or are they not? And it's a whole different spin of looking at things, that they don't have that stress that they normally do, because this seems like something simple to them. But this is something that we as teachers can assess and say, okay, they get it or they don't. The other great thing about taking notebooks as an assessment is it's such a great opportunity for students to be creative and have that motivation. Because like I said, this is their notebook. And I can't tell you how many kids at the beginning of the year, I asked them to draw their name and a little bit about themselves through one page, and they were so excited about it and claiming it as their own. Well, do you know why I drew an arrow? Because I like archery. And this is something that makes them responsible for their stuff and gives them character and lets them be themselves within the science classroom. So as far as I took the study, I looked at this as a very positive thing for us as the science department and a very good thing moving forward. The other thing that's great about the science notebooks is it's an opportunity for us to be all for one. The students have the ability to work on their own level, their own pace, and they have a variety of ways to show their knowledge. When you have your lower kids who struggle to write, you can say, draw out a picture, try to explain it through a picture. Or you have your higher kids, your gifted kids, you can make them take it to the next level. Explain this like you were teaching a 5th grader, and being able to take this and strategically change what your lessons for different abilities of learning and still get them to do the same thing. As a teacher, this gives us new methods of presenting things. We can make them visually draw things, we can make them write things, we can make them do graphs, take information they've learned from a lab or an activity that we've done outside and make them create a story or make them draw out a comic strip. There's so many different spins that we can take on the notebook that it's not just the cut and dry, read this, answer questions. The other thing that is great for the teachers is it's an opportunity to individualize our lessons or evaluations, where I can say, you know, Johnny struggles with reading, so instead of giving him a passage, maybe I'm going to give him a picture and say, tell me what this picture means to you. Whereas I can have a higher person and say, read this and tell me what you think about it. There's so many different directions, again, that we can go with it, that there's positives for us as teachers and there's positives for the students. Not only did I see positives in the study, but there's also a lot of reference of the science notebooks and a lot of resources out there concluding that this is the next big thing. And this thing is, there's so many positives to using a science notebook in comparison to other things. And obviously we as teachers, we teach differently. We're all different people, but being able to do it in the way that you want it can still put a big spin and positive for the students, not only the students, but yourself. And if you look at Robertson and Langford, these were instructors in Columbia. They explain that the science notebook provides a way for students to get a deeper understanding of the content. This is due to the fact that students take a greater responsibility for learning as they develop procedures and design tables for themselves instead of following teacher instructions. Second person I looked at was Dr. Beckstead. And Dr. Beckstead was an educator in middle school science and English. And he described the science notebooks was a perfect way to communicate student finding. That throughout writing, a teacher can learn many things about students and understand the concepts covered in unit study. And I know we talked about how we had to do 2 writing pieces. And this is, I think, the reason the district sort of spin into the science notebooks is we can still do writing within the notebook and allow them to do different ways of writing. So maybe a kid is almost there, but they have something missing, and we can read that through their writing and help make explanation behind it. Next person I looked into was Dr. Morrison. He had a concentration in science education and said the science notebook writing is a way for students to strengthen their language skills as they develop an understanding of the world around them. He also mentioned that science notebooks gave teachers a valuable tool to assess student understanding. The last person that I looked into was Dr. Shepero. He was a professor at Northwestern University, and he discussed how science notebooks are valuable for all ages from elementary to high school students. Obviously, they would include different information, but this allows the opportunity to differentiate on all levels of education. So where do we go from here? So hopefully at this point you have determined that science notebooks are a very positive thing, and they're not just a check in the box for us. We want to see the students grow, and this is a great way that we can incorporate and do fun things and still give them a way to show that they are achieving and they are moving forward. But the second reason I asked you all to come here was to get ideas from one another. So I asked that you bring your science notebooks and we take some time and gather together and just really take a look at each other's notebooks and learn from each other's. Now, last year I went with the district and we looked at some of the notebooks within the district, and I know something that I learned from another teacher. She does a pre and post assessment every unit, and it's 10 simple true and false questions. She has them answer the questions. It's a real quick, read the question, answer true, or answer false, or leave it blank if you don't know. And at the end of the unit, they come back and they do the same thing. And hopefully, the students have seen a growth. And not only have they seen a growth, but they can take their own assessment and make a graph out of it. And I just thought it was such a great way, such a quick assessment, and there wasn't very much pressure with the students. So I did bring a notebook that you all could look at that, and I know Bird has already asked for a copy of that, and she already decided that she was going to do that as well. Or maybe taking that idea and spinning it into your own way. Maybe you don't want to do true and false, but would still like to do a pre-assessment. Getting ideas from one another on how you can incorporate things for yourself to be better for the students as well. So when you look at the notebooks, I asked you to consider a few things. Consider the types of assessments that you'll be using with the kids. I know I talked about the pre and post assessment. I'll do quick writes for the kids a lot. Just trying to see if there's anything different out there. Different ways to provide notes for the students. And you might want to look based off your grade level, or you might want to look based off of, how is 7th grade doing something different than 6th grade so that we can move them forward as the year goes on. The third point, I had asked you to look at incorporating the arts. Now that we're a STEAM school, arts is a big thing for us, and we need to make sure that we're incorporating it within our classroom. Like, obviously, we have the science down, and hopefully technology will be coming soon. We try to incorporate math with the labs, but we still, as a school, need to focus on the arts and how we're going to move forward with that. And lastly, since the notebooks is replacing one of the writing pieces, we need to make sure we have strong writing there. Because, as Kevin said, if there's not good incorporation of the writing, we're going to have to do the notebooks and another writing piece. And we were all thrilled that we got rid of that one writing piece. So making sure students are writing science-based. They don't need to have 5-paragraph essay, but making sure that they're giving good evidence to what they see and explain it through what they know. So here's the sources from most of the doctors and professors that I talked about. And really, I'm going to leave this off now and just let you guys take some time and group together, pass around notebooks, and see where we can go from here to make this stronger for not only us, but the students.